On June 8, 2012, the Vancouver Police Department received a distress call from Yuan Shitang, a 25-year-old Chinese exchange student. He reported his mother, Lian Ji GUO, missing just a day before her planned departure to China. Lian Ji GUO, who didn't speak English, was visiting her son, Yuan Shitang, along with her husband, Tang Jui. The family had been in Vancouver for 20 days, enjoying their time together. As the departure date neared, Yuan Shitang intended to accompany his parents to the airport. However, on the morning of their flight, Yuan found his father still asleep and decided to let him rest, taking his mother out for breakfast instead. Upon returning to their rental, Yuan began loading luggage into the car, noticing his mother watching from the window. He then left briefly to run errands, returning to find his mother missing. Yuan woke his father, Tang Jui, and together they began their search for Lian Ji. Initially hopeful, they assumed she had stepped out briefly and couldn't have gone far. But as hours passed with no sign of her, worry gnawed at them. They combed the city, checked nearby areas, and even went to the airport, hoping she might have taken a taxi there. But disappointment met them at every turn. With heavy hearts, they boarded their flight, her empty seat beside them a stark reminder of her absence. Arriving home after a harrowing flight, Tang Jui found no solace. His wife was still missing. The next morning, Yuan reached out to the authorities, initiating a thorough investigation. Initial suspicions of illegal immigration were swiftly dismissed when Lian Ji's belongings were found untouched in Yuan's car. Fear gripped Yuan as he contemplated his mother's fate. He mobilized a community-wide effort to find her, distributing flyers, speaking to the media, and pleading for any information. Tang Jui joined the search, their anguish resonating deeply with the public. Despite exhaustive efforts, days passed without a breakthrough. The police investigation yielded little, leaving Yuan and Tang Jui to navigate their nightmare alone, their desperation growing with each passing moment. The absence of ransom calls dealt a blow to the kidnapping theory, leading the police down a darker path of speculation. They turned their attention to the family, and a curious detail emerged during their investigation. Yuan had rented an apartment within the same B&B where his parents were staying, a fact he had neglected to mention. Previously, it was assumed he lived elsewhere, visiting his parents occasionally. Now, it seemed he had been just next door the entire time. Questioned about this omission, Yuan shrugged it off, claiming the police hadn't asked, so he hadn't thought it relevant. Yet, his decision to rent a room in the same building raised eyebrows, suggesting a desire for constant proximity to his parents. While this didn't implicate him directly, his casual demeanor added a layer of suspicion. Investigators also noted Yuan's reluctance to showcase his English proficiency, despite years of study in Canada. This, coupled with inconsistencies in his story, initially claiming his mother disappeared from the B&B, then changing to a breakfast outing, and later stating she vanished from his apartment, cast further doubt. Confronted by his father, Tang Jui, Yuan offered a weak excuse, blaming it on a desire to shield his landlord from legal trouble regarding the apartment's occupancy. Though dubious, Tang Jui chose to focus on finding his wife, leaving the tangled web of his son's deceit for another day. As the investigation progressed, police turned to the tenants of the B&B in Richmond, Vancouver, finding reports of a harmonious family dynamic, but no significant leads. Despite their efforts, they hit a dead end. During a press conference 2 weeks later, Tang Jui and Yuan voiced their hope for Lian Ji's safe return, though acknowledging the looming possibility of foul play. Investigators, too, began leaning towards a homicide theory, intensifying their search efforts in nearby wooded areas, but to no avail. With business woes pressuring him to return to China, Tang Jui reluctantly left, entrusting Yuan with continuing the search. Assured by his son's resolve, Tang Jui departed, leaving behind a family torn apart by uncertainty. On July 20th, 2012, the case was transferred to Canada's Integrated Homicide Investigation Unit, IHIU, with detectives eyeing Lian Ji's family as potential suspects, particularly Yuan due to inconsistencies in his statements. During a search of the B&B where Yuan had stayed, investigators uncovered traces of blood in his room, but without definitive proof of its origin, they couldn't make an arrest. Yuan's refusal to allow a search of his apartment further stymied their efforts. On the same day, a grim discovery was made. A suitcase containing human remains washed up on a beach near Harwood Island, hours away from Vancouver. The victim, a middle-aged Asian woman, was suspected to be Lian Ji. Autopsy results confirmed her identity and revealed she had died from severe head and spinal injuries. Markings on steel nails found with the body matched characteristics of Lian Ji's recent spinal surgery, providing grim confirmation of her fate. However, the lack of surveillance in the area left the identity of the perpetrator shrouded in mystery. In a chilling turn of events, the Royal Canadian Mounted Police took control of the case, orchestrating an elaborate undercover operation to ensnare Yuan. Keeping the discovery of Lian Ji's body secret, they deployed a female officer of Chinese descent to approach him under the guise of having information about his mother's whereabouts. At a local Starbucks, Yuan met with the undercover officer, who spun a tale of finding Lian Ji's body in a suitcase by the sea. She offered to dispose of the body for a price. Though Yuan initially resisted any implication, the officer's threat to involve the police spurred him to comply. In subsequent meetings, Yuan's desperation led him to suggest a chilling plan, eliminating his father to inherit the family wealth. Falling into the trap, he divulged the harrowing truth. Yuan, hailing from a prosperous business family in Foshan, China, had long felt suffocated by his mother's overbearing nature. Lian Ji's controlling demeanor, akin to a tiger mom, extended to all aspects of Yuan's life, including his education and relationships. Sent to Canada against his wishes to study, Yuan found himself isolated and resentful. A failed engagement, pressure to marry according to his mother's wishes, and a sense of alienation drove Yuan to the brink. His resentment boiled over into a meticulously planned murder. In June 2012, Yuan executed his plan, luring his mother into his room under false pretenses before brutally ending her life with a hammer. He then orchestrated a facade of concern, concealing his heinous crime while manipulating the investigation. As the truth unraveled, the depths of Yuan's deception and desperation became starkly clear, painting a chilling portrait of familial betrayal and tragedy. As evidence mounted against Yuan, investigators proceeded with caution, meticulously gathering additional proof to substantiate their case. Blood traces in the rented car, burn stains, and blood in Yuan's apartment storage room bolstered their findings. On September 7, 2012, 3 months after Lian Ji's disappearance, Yuan Ji Tang was arrested for her murder and for plotting to kill his father. Despite initial denials, Yuan confessed when confronted with the overwhelming evidence, including a recorded confession. News of Yuan's arrest rocked China, prompting Tang Jui's swift return to Canada. The revelation of his son's actions left Tang Jui reeling in disbelief, struggling to reconcile the heinous crime with the son he knew. Meanwhile, Yuan remained unrepentant. In a surprising display of familial loyalty, Tang Jui stood by his son throughout the trial, investing heavily in his legal defense. He believed that forgiving Yuan was the only way to honor Lian Ji's memory and prevent further tragedy. Tang Jui's impassioned plea for leniency in court, portraying Yuan as a victim of strict parenting, showcased the depth of his love and anguish. However, the court's verdict differed, finding Yuan guilty after a protracted legal battle. On February 2, 2015, the Supreme Court of Canada sentenced Yuan Shi Tang to life imprisonment for second-degree murder and attempted murder, with eligibility for parole after 17 years. The case, fraught with themes of control and betrayal, remains a haunting chapter in Canadian history. While justice prevailed, the family's shattered remains serve as a poignant reminder of the devastation wrought by one man's actions.